Hey, it's here. In today's video, we are doing something very different. As you can see, I'm joined by Andre today. Normally what I'd do on the channel is I'd showcase some features and I'd walk you through how they work. But when it comes to the Tableau developer space, I just don't know anywhere near as much as Andre. So I thought instead of pretending to know what I'm talking about, I thought we'd just have Andre here today and we do a collaboration. So Andre, take it away. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tim. So I'm Andre. I'm a Tableau Datadev ambassador for the second year in a row, actually. It was in the inaugural group. I've been using Tableau for 8 years, been developing on top of Tableau for 5 years, participated in quite a few hackathons and created loads of video content, but also lots of blog posts around Tableau, but also around other things like web development and cloud and data engineering. And all of that kind of fits into that whole kind of data dev space. And I'm excited to kind of look at the new stuff that's there for the Tableau data devs today.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those interesting things because Tableau releases things like API improvements and essentially features in the data dev space don't come out in the usual quarterly cadence. They just sort of come out when they're ready, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so over the last, let's say 6 months, there's been actually quite a few that many people might not have noticed or might notice. Things we'll cover a little later on throughout the video. We've put timestamps, so if you're already getting bored and you want to jump ahead, skip to the relevant section. We'll go into those things in lots of detail, so have a look at the timestamps as well. But it's probably worth starting by trying to understand sort of how we know each other, if that makes sense, and sort of how we work together. I can start by just saying you're a colleague. we work together at the Information Lab, so I'm very fortunate to work with someone like Andre. Actually, he's an incredibly talented person, not just from a Tableau perspective in terms of data dev and just web development in general, but also I think I personally really appreciate being able to bounce ideas off you in terms of the way platforms and technologies come together, and also the good old sort of typical dev chats that we have about startups and stuff like that as well. So that's sort of predominantly, I think, how we know each other. But then also we've actually been at a hackathon together at the last in-person conference, which was in Vegas. Yeah,
2019, right?
Exactly, crazy, right?
Yeah, we walked away with an award.
We did win an award. I'll try and find a picture and put it on screen. We were coding together. I can't really say I was coding, but we were hacking away with Lane as well. Lane, who was at the time a colleague, but now has moved on. But nonetheless, yeah, it was a pretty fun experience, actually. It was nice to be sort of part of the atmosphere, and there were lots of great solutions that were built on that day. I think around the new APIs at the time, which is now quite old. So let me ask you this. We sort of know how we know each other, but how did you become I'm going to say Tableau developer? And I don't mean that in the sense of the traditional sense, like, building workbooks. I mean, how did you get into the data dev scene?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I started with Tableau, as I said, like 8 years ago, I really enjoyed building things with Tableau. Like the first dashboard that I built was like, oh, actually you can make this really cool thing really quickly. But then also I started realizing also really quickly that, hey, building on top of Tableau is very exciting and doing more with the product and extending the product. Kind of the very first kind of API that I started working with was the extensions, the dashboard extensions API. Back then it was in like an alpha version, so I was just like hacking away in like very early code. And that's kind of how I rolled into it, and then started participating in some of the hackathons. And good learning a project that I worked on was where another technology that we specialize in is called Ultrix.
Ultrix, yeah.
And I tried to make those two kind of work together more seamless. So integrate Ultrix in a Tableau dashboard. So users could then run their Ultrix flows while they were like interrogating charts and then getting insights in Tableau. So that was a little bit of a challenge that I set myself and how to make that work. And slowly along the way, you kind of pick up things like, as you were saying, about like web development and data engineering. And that's the really cool thing about Tableau is that there's loads of like miscellaneous concepts around it. Even we see loads of people interested in like predictive analytics because they find that interesting, like integrating RServe or Python models into Tableau. There's a lot of like things you can specialize in, and I figured out, hey, this whole web development and API stuff, that's actually really cool to work with, and that's kind of how I rolled into it.
Right. And I seem to recall, I think you've studied the same Udemy course that everyone who's tried to get into web development has done, which was, what's the name of the lady who runs that Udemy course? Do you remember the name of the Udemy course?
I remember doing one with Colt Steele. He did like 2 ones.
Oh, you did with Colt Steele.
He's really good as well.
Hesham is the one who I was saying did the other one than Udemy. But I think everyone in web development has done like a handful of one of 5 or 6 web development courses, and they've used that to sort of kickstart their journey into it. One of the biggest things I always get asked by a lot of people who are new to data dev, and probably look at your journey and they think, oh, wow, you've come a really long way in such a short amount of time. How do people sort of keep up the motivation? Because it takes time. It's not the kind of thing you can just, it's not like desktop where you can kind of learn it very quickly. Like Tableau Desktop is quite a straightforward tool to learn in a compressed amount of time. If you did a month of really focused learning, you could learn most of what you need to know. Yeah. But with web development, you need a lot more time and experience, right? So how do you keep that energy high, and how do you sort of keep pushing through?
You really, I would say, like, you really learn how to fail, if that makes sense. You will fail more often than succeed. Like if you try something, 9 out of 10 times it doesn't work because you don't have the right skills yet to do it. Yeah. What I figured out is you really need to first find the best way for you to learn. So some people learn through reading books, others YouTube content, reading documentation. And you need to find a mix of those elements in order to learn and keep on top of things. What I realized a lot is that I learn a lot through examples. So if I see someone on YouTube building a particular project, and I think like, hey, I can, like, if I make few modifications, I can make it adapt to Tableau or to one of the other tools that we use. So I always try to like have a look at what other people are doing and then build on top of that. But no one really always starts from scratch, right? That's not. You always start with some idea or some kind of other project that people have been doing in another tool. So yeah, it's, as I said, learn to fail, because there's so many elements to this. If you think about, hey, I want to learn how to embed Tableau in a website, for example, that sounds easy, and it has been made a lot easier, and that's what we're going to look at later. But you still need to know the core skills such as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the building blocks of the web. So you need to understand those things, and you don't need to understand them like fully, but enough to make it work. And then slowly over time you add features to it. And actually for me, that's the fun bit about it, is like that constant learning. You never have the idea, I know more than 1% of what to do, right? It's always like, hey, let's go next and let's figure this out and figure that out. And then new products are being launched which you want to learn. So it's that constant learning that gets me excited.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I always think of when I think about web development is you need enough to be able to reverse engineer what you find, right? that's sort of the middle ground of how much knowledge you need. As soon as you know enough to right click, inspect, and understand what's going on a web page, that's enough. Exactly. you can get started from there, because then at least you know what terms to look for, what technologies to invest in, and you can generally follow the discourse and the discussions around what's latest and greatest, what's Tableau doing with these languages and so on. So I think that's the sort of the high level overview you gave there is actually a pretty important grounding for a lot of people, especially if they want to get into this. I did a video on learning Tableau, and the dev space is actually probably the least looked at part, because people perceive it to be like this really big challenge. And it is. But I also say it probably has the biggest reward, because you get to enhance Tableau well beyond what it can do today. You get to build new parts of Tableau that don't exist. And that's probably the most exciting thing, right?
Yeah, I would also suggest is, when you start out with this, is first figure out what you enjoy and then build on top of it. You can't force yourself to learn something that actually you don't enjoy working with. Also within the data dev space, there's quite a lot of the APIs we'll talk about in a bit, but you have, for example, for some of them, you need Python as the programming language. For other ones, it's like the web development, like JavaScript, and you can even write C# when you use like one of the connector SDKs, right?
Right.
There is no one unless there's like a Superman that knows all of those languages. So I would really hone into one specific thing. And for me, it was really get good at JavaScript, because with JavaScript, I can write stuff in the front end, in the back end. I can communicate with databases, lots of things on the internet. Everything is written in JavaScript. It is a tool of a programming language that will not go away. It will only become bigger on the internet. And then we have adoptions to that, like TypeScript, which is like a superset of JavaScript. And you slowly learn all of those tools as well when you get interested in it.
Yeah. I'm smiling because the week you decided to take on TypeScript, all I kept on getting is Signal messages going, "This is incredible. How have I never done this before?"
If there's one tip for people that are a little bit further in the JavaScript journey and haven't looked at TypeScript, and go and learn TypeScript. The other tool that I actually got access to last week, which we're not going to do any branding, but if you sign up for like GitHub Copilot, GitHub Copilot is like an AI assistant for programming. And it learns from your code and code written by thousands of other developers. And it's amazing. It's like integrates nicely with loads of code editors and with TypeScript as well. And it will really, it's a little bit like, have you ever written in Gmail an email, right? So if you write an email in Gmail and it says nice to, and it auto-completes to nice to meet you, for example. But here you can write comments and say like, I want to write a function that adds two numbers together. And you write that as a comment, you hit enter or tab and it creates that function for you. Very basic functions, but it can get your coding a lot faster. But I don't want to deviate and into like
we've got plenty of time to come into it. So you've mentioned this phrase data dev several times. What is a Tableau data dev? So to give us a high level overview of what the program is, how do you become one, how do you get started?
That's a very good point. So Tableau data dev is someone who uses Tableau's APIs to extend and integrate the platform into other products. Now, a Tableau data dev is anyone who is interested in using the APIs, even if it's like reading about it, learning about it. There's no like prerequisites for you to like become a data dev. There is a way for you to enter Tableau's data dev program, the developer platform, basically. It's free to join, so we'll put some links in the description so people can sign up for free. That's basically for you a playground, and you can basically get in touch with other Tableau data devs, talk about the product, learn about the product as well.
Nice. And so I think I'm if I'm sort of relating to that, I'm technically a data dev because I actually use the sandbox environments that you get as part of the data dev program to demo pretty much all the online features, the Tableau online features that are on the channel. So it's also a really good space to learn broadly about the platform, because the developer side of Tableau is very heavily invested in enabling people to learn the platform as much as it is about learning Tableau desktop or server, whatever it is, right? It's sort of been designed to kind of get everyone in.
Yeah, so there's mainly three parts to it. It's the first part is that you get that free Tableau Online sandbox, which is always or typically one version ahead of the main Tableau Online production one. So you're always looking at new features. The other element is that you get access to Slack. So Tableau has created a Slack channel, like many kind of tools out there. They're creating this community through Slack where you can communicate through different channels about the various APIs. You can get help, you can showcase stuff. And then the last part is you're being invited to monthly sprint demos where you can actually get a peek at some of the new integrations or new APIs, and they'll ask for feedback as well. So if you're interested in say Tableau's Python integration, there's like new features coming out. So in sprint demos, you can then see what's coming, and then you can give some feedback.
Nice. And so this all feeds into probably the next most obvious question, which is like, how many APIs are there? What do they do? And so what can people do with them?
Excellent question. We get those a lot when we talk even to customers, right? About different APIs.
Right, exactly.
I always put them into 3 categories. So we have our connect, we have integrate, and we have automate. So connect, integrate, automate. That's kind of the buckets that you need to think about. Then you need to think about, hey, what's the thing that I want to do in Tableau? Within connect, it's like, hey, I have this data source, but it's not one of the out-of-the-box data sources. So there's 3 options, basically. You can create the connector SDK, which is a fairly new API. It's also part of the Tableau Exchange. So you can put your connector on the Tableau Exchange, and then anyone can kind of use these. And they almost become native connections in Tableau. So if you open up Tableau Desktop or in Tableau web offering, you can see there's almost as native connections, and they use ODBC and JDBC connections.
Right.
That's the connector SDK. Then we have the Hyper API, which allows you to programmatically create, read, update, and delete rows in a hyperfile. So you can create hyperfiles through a Python script or Java if you write Java.
Is Java the same as JavaScript?
Yeah, it's the same as a car is to carpet.
Sorry, that's an ongoing joke between me and Andre. We always take a moment to have that joke.
That's it. If someone's interested in those types of jokes, like the internet is full of them, like loads of memes about JavaScript and Java. The backstory we want to dive into in this podcast, in this video. Sorry, not podcast.
It's a podcast.
The connector, we were thinking about the connector SDK, the Hyper API, and then we also have the web data connector. The web data connector is very much for like APIs, like RESTful APIs that return XML or JSON to you. The web data connector is one of the kind of the oldest of those 3, but very soon there will be some updates to that one, which is going to be really interesting. So that's connect. Then we go to integrate, and that's really putting Tableau into other applications or putting other applications in Tableau. So how that works is like putting Tableau in other applications is embedding. So it's the embedding API. So you can put it in a website, in like CMS or something like WordPress, for example. Or we've seen companies now also putting Tableau in like Notion or in those kind of wiki pages. Because Tableau is being consumed, and dashboards are being consumed in a lot of different places. So it's the embedding one, and then we have the dashboard extensions, which I mentioned earlier is one of the first APIs I worked with. And that allows you to create little web applications inside a Tableau. So we've seen, for example, one of our colleagues, Craig, has built like the export all extension, which allows you to generate Excel files from within a dashboard. And we've seen loads of like innovations in terms of like new chart types as well. And then those are the 2 major ones. And then if we think about automating, we are talking about Tableau's the RESTful API, and the webhooks. And the REST API allows you to programmatically interact with the elements on Tableau Online and Server, like creating users, updating users, deleting workbooks, uploading workbooks, all of those things. And the last one, the webhooks, then is for listening to events in Tableau Server or Tableau Online. So someone publishes a new workbook or a data source doesn't refresh, there's been a problem. You can then act on those. So you can put a message into Slack, you can add it to Todoist or loads of things. I've done a few sessions on the Tableau conference last year as well about webhooks. If someone's interested, we'll put those links as well in there.
Yeah, we'll definitely put all those links. There's Tableau have a nice page that actually summarizes all the APIs as well. So we'll put those all in the description. So be sure to check it out. But I think that's a really good way to, at a high level, break them down. Connect, integrate, and automate. And one of the things about embedding that I think always catches me out is I always think of embedding as the traditional embedding of a web page, i.e. you go get a iframe and you put it in another web page, right? But actually embedding goes well beyond that. It can also be taking bits of information like a metric, which is just showing you the performance of a particular thing. Or you can also embed the entire authoring experience inside of another application, so people can build visualizations inside of their own application using Tableau to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's because that's what we see in like the wider data ecosystem and the wider kind of data visualization space, is that it's not only dashboards people want to look at nowadays. Like, not everyone takes a decision based off something that happens after you've done 20 filters, right? Actually, people want to go to data quickly, like metrics, for example. Like metrics hasn't had as much attention from the community as I think it should have, because metrics are really things like how many users have signed up to the platform, or it's like those really like key metrics that a company looks at, like what's our revenue, what's our churn rate, for example. Those elements are like really important, and you don't want to hide those in one of your dashboards. No, they need to be a metric. And now with the ability to embed those as well, you can put them in custom portals, you can put them in your wiki pages, and you can put them wherever your user is. And that's the main thing about embedding. It's like, put Tableau where your users are. Don't send your users to Tableau. That's kind of the thing, right? Because Tableau Online, Tableau Server, great product, but not everyone actually needs to navigate that interface. They just want answers, and as quick as possible.
Just want answers. Yeah. The majority of users who use Tableau, the product, are not building in the product, right? They are consuming the analysis. It's typically, one developer to multiple analysts who are looking at that data and making decisions from it. So that's a pretty good overview. So let's get into some of the new things that have sort of come out then, because it's probably worth. Let's do a rundown of them, and then we'll go through them in detail. And at this point, we'll also do some screen sharing and stuff like that. So the first one, I'm looking at my notes here. The first one is connected apps. Second one is the Embedding API v3, and the last one is Embedding Metrics. So let's start with connected apps. I know literally nothing about this, so explain it to me like I'm an idiot. Like, what is the big deal with this? Why is it a good thing? What is it going to make easier? And as an everyday user who won't ever build anything with this, what will I see? What will I benefit?
Yeah, of course. So there is a little bit of history to this, but there's also a little bit of influence from Salesforce into this. So Tableau has been acquired by Salesforce like 2.5 years ago now. I can't keep up with the time, but and Salesforce has always had these little things called apps. And they see everything as an app, and then users can basically, like a Lego system, they can put those apps together and build their own kind of product. So they can pick and choose what they want and put it together. And Tableau is moving towards this as well. And they created this first iteration, which is called connected apps. And connected apps are currently, what they are doing is they're a way for you to authenticate to embedded Tableau content. So, i.e. the metrics, a dashboard, a sheet, a chart, whatever you want your users to interact with, you can authenticate. So it's an easier way of doing that. And there was a real need for this, because we see a huge shift of users moving to Tableau Online as a SaaS product. There's more and more companies that don't want to host Tableau Server themselves, or any product, right? It's not necessarily that they don't want to host Tableau Server, it's any product. They just want to get up and running with it. They want to put their credit card in and get started. We've seen that with companies such as Snowflake, Databricks, DBT, all of them, AWS, all of them are like really championing this SaaS approach. So that's what we're seeing with Tableau, is like a huge shift towards Tableau Online. And they had to come up with a way to make embedding work for Tableau Online as well. Because traditionally with Tableau Server, how you did embedding of a web page into a portal, and you did the single sign-on approach. So someone signs into a portal, and it automatically authenticates people to a dashboard. You typically did that with trusted authentication. Currently,
Right.
you still need to use trusted authentication for Tableau Server until the new version comes out, which hopefully is like within
Right.
days or hours of this recording.
It could have happened
already. We don't know. If you watch this in the future, then yeah.
It's definitely come out. Most people will watch this after it's come out.
Yeah. So yeah, now you can actually get it. Very good. 2022.1. There you go. Yeah, so trusted authentication actually worked with a concept of putting IP addresses on an allow list. I don't use the word. I don't like using the word whitelist because that's not a great word for identifying IP addresses. But yeah, they put them on an allow list. However, with Tableau Online, because it's a shared resource on AWS, you can't say, hey, this particular IP address is allowed to communicate with Tableau Online because there's so many users using it.
Thousands of people.
So it's not very secure. So they moved to a new authentication model using JOTs. They're actually called JSON Web Tokens. This is an industry standard that loads of companies like Stripe and all of those, they are using that for authentication. Yeah, and that really allows you to make it a lot easier to integrate Tableau Online in various portals or websites and create that single sign-on experience. So it's very much focused on the kind of the making it easier to authenticate.
Right. So like the net effect should be, if it's easy to authenticate, if it's easy to build in or connect Tableau to other tools, we should start to see an increased number of tools taking advantage of this, because previously maybe the burden of work was too high for development to consider putting time aside to do this. But in essence, now that barrier has maybe been brought down, or more to the point, it's been standardized to a standard that web developers are already familiar with, and therefore it should just be sort of bread and butter to integrate these two things together.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a few things related to these connected apps, is that you can create as many connected apps as you want on your Tableau Online site or your Tableau server. And those connected apps you can scope either to projects or to specific sites, and even to specific domain names. So what that allows you to do is, because traditionally what happened with trusted authentication, you expose your whole Tableau server to this particular IP address and to this portal, right? Even though you could say like, hey, only via the APIs, only expose this dashboard. But still there is this kind of exposure of the whole server. But now you can actually limit this and say like, hey, for this connected app, we only want example.com portal to actually accept requests from. So you can scope it to domains, and soon you can even put the scope in the JWT token, which, as I said, is an industry standard. So you can say, for example, hey, this user, when they request a JWT token, a job token, limits the scope to say view the dashboard. Other ones can filter the dashboard. Other ones can like do web authoring, those types of things. And currently it's not in there yet in version 3, but it will move to like version 3.1 or 3.2. Yeah.
Right. This is really good, because I think of loads of use cases where embedding has come up and a company wants to give external people one level of access, internal people who are senior another level of access, and then the finance team, God level access to see everything so they can, make decisions, right? This will allow you to do that in a much more confident way, I guess, because the worrying thing with those ones is always testing security and trying to think of every sort of eventuality. But there was always a little quirk.
Exactly.
If the user did X, Y, and Z, you can't really stop them doing Y. But now this sounds like a even more solid.
Exactly. It's that security aspect, but it's also almost moving Tableau Online on par with Tableau Server in terms of the embed offering. In terms of like the technology, right? There's like the licensing is still different, but the approach to actually the authentication is almost similar now.
Right.
And for example, what you could do, as you were mentioning about the 3 different tiers of people logging in, that can all live on the same Tableau Online site, because you as the Tableau Online site admin don't have to think about scaling resources, think about your server,
Right.
because you're not actually hosting that. Tableau is hosting it for you. So you can think about, hey, actually implementing the product and getting value from the product, rather than
Right.
think about like the back end.
That's really good. That's really good. So that's super interesting. I'd be keen to sort of see Tableau showcase some of these solutions. I'm assuming that's what conference is for. We'll come back to conference in a second, because I think you've got some news to share on that a little later. But yeah, like that sounds like a really sort of good feature. Let's think about the next one. The Embedding API v3. Now, my context here is only the first time I ever did embedding. I only did it in HTML and JavaScript. I was literally, the classic HTML lesson everyone does, where you literally type the HTML, you go get the embed code, you copy and paste it in, and you go, well, I've embedded it. And I used to remember the JavaScript call you'd made there was to API version 2. And there's been version 2 for a really long while. So what's big about version 3, and sort of why does it justify a new version? Why is it not 2.1 or 2.4?
Yeah, exactly. So it's version 3 because they've rewritten it from the ground up. So they've literally started with 0. I think they just opened a new file on the computer and says like, hey, new.javascript, new.js. I'm not entirely sure if they started all the way from scratch. I'm not a library maintainer, so I don't know how to write an actual JavaScript library. But
if it's anything like how we name Tableau files, it's probably new version 25.
Yeah, exactly. So what they moved to with Embedding API version 3, I've done 2 videos on that now, I think. The main thing is that they moved to using web components. There is a huge discussion in the web development space if web components are good, if they're bad, but Tableau has moved to them. It is more modern. That's the main thing. It's more modern. It's easier to implement. And for the developers at Tableau, it's easier to iterate on as well. So what are web components? If you go to a website and you see a big title on a website, it's called an H1. It's the biggest title. And you have, for example, an image, which has an image tag, img, as a tag. And that's how you write HTML, right? With these tags. Exactly, a little bit of content, like it's almost XML. It's a superset of XML. And what Tableau has done is now created a web component called Tableau Viz. And there's also another one for authoring, which I don't know exactly what that name is, because I've not really used the authoring part. But it's Tableau Viz, which means that in the background, Tableau has written a whole bunch of code for you. Including like some what they call a shadow DOM, but I don't really want to go too deep into like what web components are. But basically, it's easier for you, like rather than having to have that image tag or the H1, you also now have Tableau Viz, and then there's some properties on there like the SRC, the source, where is the actual Viz that you want to render. You can add some properties like hide the toolbar or show the toolbar or set the height and the width. And that allows you to like easier implement the version 3 into other tools like a WordPress, a Drupal, a Notion, all of those tools. It's a lot easier because you're using just web components, just web standards. So they've also promised us better performance. So that's another one. We still have to test out, of course. Also because it integrates with connected apps, there's a property that you can add called token. And token is then the result of that JWT handshake. So you add that token to the web component, and then it renders it on the web page. Basically that makes it a lot more secure, but also makes it ready for when Google Chrome and all the other browsers fade out third-party cookies. Because third-party cookies have always been like really annoying to work with, because what you do when you embed Tableau, but this is with a lot of content on the internet, is you're using iframes. So in the background, you're putting an iframe into another page, so you can have pages within pages, right? Exactly, almost Inception. But in order to authenticate from a different domain, so if you go to example.com, but your dashboard is not on the same domain name, it's a different Tableau server, Tableau online site, you often get like error messages saying, hey, you can't do this because you're coming from a different domain. So that's another one that they're working on fixing through this new API and connected apps.
Right. And have you built something? I seem to recall you've built something to sort of demo this. It might be worth just sort of talking a bit about that. Maybe even share it if you've got it.
Yeah. Let me share it.
That is a very deliberate plant, because I know Andre is very humble and he won't talk about his amazing work. So I'm having to make sure he does.
So we'll put this link as well. So I just share my screen and we have the Tableau Developer program here. I'm already logged in, but you can, in the Tableau Developer, you can just sign up. You'll be added to everything. It's free. No payment there. So what I've done with the new Embedding API version 3 is I created this little playground. Again, we'll put the link in the chat. And this is specifically, it says it's for learning. And it was two way of learning. It's for the user, but also for me. So I could learn how to actually use this.
Right.
And using it was a lot better than version 2. So I definitely appreciated that one.
Good.
And yeah, what this is a playground. The idea is that you can embed Tableau server dashboards, Tableau online, Tableau public. And then you can play around with some of the properties that you can set on the visualizations that you're embedding, like the height and the width and what device you want to look at. But also one of the things that I want to give you is the actual HTML behind what you're doing.
Right.
So then you can copy paste that into another tool and have some kind of starting point there.
Right. So it's like a cookbook. You get all the different bits from everywhere. You put it in, and then it sort of shows you in reverse what it should actually look like if you were to code it yourself, right?
Indeed, yes. Yeah. It's kind of a really good starter. I have links to the documentation here as well, if people want to look at that. But if we hit get started, what we'll see is that by default, I'm rendering a visualization from Tableau Public.
Yeah.
And this dashboard is the one that I also use if anyone's watching and has watched my Embedding Analytics version 2 course. This is the one that we're using there as well. But what we get here is the actual dashboard. And then on the left-hand side, here's where we're getting the actual options.
Yeah.
So we can set, in this case, some of those options here. Don't want to we're not going to implement connected apps here because then I have to hop into Tableau Online and do all that jazz. But we can do that at some other point in the future. But yeah, this really allows you to then play around with this and say hey, what I want to, for example, in this case, disable the URL actions. Yeah. I want to hide the tabs and hide the toolbar. And those are just like HTML kind of interactions that you're doing. Now we're using Tableau Public, so we can't really hide the toolbar. But if we now hop into here on the top right, it says the HTML output, we're actually getting that code.
Nice.
So
that's the Tableau Viz thing you talked about. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is the actual web component. So this is new in Embedding version 3, Tableau-Viz. And here we can then see hey, I've actually hidden the tabs. And this is almost like a responsive two-way communication. So if I click on hide toolbar again, we can say hey, the toolbar is now moving and disable URL actions. We can set that now at false.
Nice. Yeah.
Similar to the width and the height. So if we want to say hey, actually the dashboard we want to set to 500 and the width to 500 as well, the code itself updates. So you can then easily copy paste this into another tool that you're using it for. And then, if you hop back into the Tableau dashboard, you'll see it's now a lot smaller. I changed it to 500 by 500. And then you can swap between the different devices as well. So you can set it now to mobile, for example. And then it goes to the mobile view, hop into the HTML, and we'll see that actually it's now the device has been set to mobile. So that's that. If you want to learn more on how to use this, there is a bottom right. I have a video popped up and gives you instructions on how to further use this.
Nice. That's a good use of Loom. Loom is a video tool that Andre's been using that I actually quite like as well. So it's nice that you've put it in here in the page for people to watch. So this is a really good tool because Earlier on, I was saying you just need to know enough to reverse engineer. So for the majority of people who just want to get started with embedding, something like Tableau Public, they want to put it in their blog. They could go grab the Tableau Public link, come here, put the details, set the width and the height of their blog, choose a device type so they could test what it looks like on a mobile and a desktop, and sort of grab the what would they grab? The Tableau Viz component and the script as well, right?
Yeah, so if they want the full page, so you could in theory just grab this full page.
And you got a full page, yeah?
And I could go to, say, another tool like a Code Sandbox. If I just sign into Code Sandbox here. Code Sandbox is a tool that I use to like quickly mock up things.
Mm-hmm.
If I go to say... just need to go to the dashboard. I don't want to create a React application. Just want to create a static HTML file.
Right.
This is like a static HTML file. Now I can put this in here. Just I copy pasted it from there.
Right.
Hit save. Oh, hit save that way.
Actually
added the sandbox. So it's a static. That's the template, and now I need to actually go into my own.
There we go. Yeah.
If I then put it in there, this should now work. If I hit save. So there we go. So it now renders that on the page itself.
Amazing. And so just to break this down, the Tableau Viz component are just like the settings for the Viz, which we typed in.
Yes.
But the thing that Tableau is doing is that script there. So that script is essentially going and getting the instructions, and Tableau have written that. That can be used on any web page, right?
Yeah, so this fetches the embedded version 3 API. So that is basically a whole bunch of code written by very smart people at Tableau that make it work seamlessly. So for this to make it work, you bring in this little web component called Tableau Viz. You set the most important one is this source, of course, where you want to comment from.
The URL of the Viz.
Yeah. And then here, this script itself, it's using like modern browsers can now also read modules. Don't want to go too deep into what modules are, but it makes it easier for you to grab certain aspects from this API if you use things like React or Svelte or Vue. You can say, I only want to grab Tableau Viz out of this whole JavaScript file. Because typically that JavaScript file is a few kilobytes, which doesn't sound much, but if you load it on a web page, and it can become quite bulky. So with a module, what you can do is you can actually extract certain elements and make it a smaller bundle size. So yeah, that's that. That's the script component there.
It's pretty cool. I've got to say that's an amazing thing you've built. Not because I'm going to find it useful, but it's generally a really nice way of, I think, breaking down the embedding process in a very visual way, but still doesn't sort of shy away from the code, because sometimes it can be pretty daunting to sometimes go to documentation and just see this on the left-hand side. And if you've never seen it, it's hard to translate it. But because you've got a nice interface to it, you've kind of done the job of translating that into something that people can use. Then they switch over to the HTML and they can draw the sort of links between the two and start there.
One of the things that Tableau has been working on a lot is improving their documentation. So what we've seen with version 2 is that the documentation is one big file. It's one big HTML file. And if you want to find what you need to do, you need to search through that web page. But you actually also need to know what you're looking for. There was no like real nice index or table of contents. So they've moved now to this kind of way. And we've seen this with other APIs as well, where they have like, where you can search the documentation, but also, for example, have a really simple, basic embedding using the web components. If you click on that, it actually walks you through on how to do this. And this is going back to what we said at the beginning about the best way to learn it. For me, it's reading documentation and seeing examples on how to do this. And this is literally like, this is what you need in order to start embedding Tableau Public. If you want to embed Tableau Online, it's exactly the same. Tableau Server, exactly the same. So they make everything like on par here.
Consistent as well. Amazing. Yeah, definitely people go check this out. This is really nice thing. Even something as basic as putting Tableau Public in your blog, this can help. And it's a really good way to start to learn, I think, a really important part of Tableau, because I think as you quite rightly pointed out earlier on, it's more important now more than ever to have analytics be in the places where people do their work, rather than expecting people to come to somewhere like Tableau Server to do their work, right?
We've seen that real shift of people like using a whole bunch of tools, right? Especially since the pandemic, the growth of SaaS products has become so big. So everyone's in different tools. So we don't want to force people to go to another tool. We actually, hey, let's put this tool that we just built, that we're just using, Tableau, let's put it in another one. And that's like a really cool innovation, I think.
So one last thing to cover is metrics. Now, I think metrics is possibly taking advantage of all this new technology, right? So to give people some sort of context, metrics are essentially created from a visualization. You go to a chart and you choose a particular, let's say, measure or piece of information you want to track. You click on it, you create a new metric, and it allows you to track that specific metric in a different way. It essentially creates a spark line chart for you that can do very basic things like track the difference in time and so on and so forth. And so it creates this sort of card. I'll put one up on the screen in post. It creates this little card, which is like a piece of information. Think of it like what's the word? Like an information card. Let's just call it an information card. But Tableau have now enabled the ability for this information card to be embedded in lots of different places, right?
Yes. Yeah. So the use cases I see, again, are similar to what we've been talking about earlier. It's like actually making Tableau like almost a lightweight component of another tool. So, hey, someone logs into, say, Notion. We use Notion a lot ourselves, right? So if you go into Notion, you go to the landing page there, and there's like this little widget, this little metric that says you've had this much revenue last week. That's the number that a lot of people just want to know. They don't want to like use loads of filters or even think about if you go to Tableau Public, there's some really good visualizations and really powerful, like the amount of time people spend like building those really engaging content. But if you think about a business use case, getting to your answer quickly is very important. So that's where metrics come in. And now the ability to put a metric into any of those tools with just a few clicks. And it's using, we're thinking about earlier, so Tableau is moving that kind of web framework all to React. React is a web framework built and maintained by Facebook, by Meta. It's a separate team. Don't worry if you don't like Facebook, but still like React, it's fine. Then yes, you can. Tableau is adopting that. All companies in the world are almost using React. So that with metrics, they are adopting that. So it's so much easier and nicely integrate with the rest of your web pages and your web content.
And it's a nice. I think of it as like a way of atomizing analytics. I think sometimes in analytics we spend too much energy and time getting really sort of into the weeds about what is the absolute answer to a question, right? Like, what is the final answer that the user needs to know? And let me just give them that. And actually, sometimes that's not necessarily what sort of people are looking for. People just want to know some ad hoc information, maybe 2 or 3 bits of information. And from that, they themselves will make the decision about what to do. But we sometimes get too drawn in on, let's just make the decision super simple for them. Let's just show them what they should do, right?
Yeah, because it's, as we see a lot of companies, is that actually driving insights and actions on the data is so much more important than the actual tool that's powering the visualization.
Right.
Even though we're talking here about Tableau, like if someone sees a number there, they need to action on it. And the place where you action on things could be, for example, a Slack, or where you message someone, right? Or it could be another communication tool like Teams. So if you have the ability to call a metric there, or quickly get a number from Ask Data, for example, then that would be a really cool place.
Cool. So that's quite a lot, actually. It's incredible how much in the last let's say year, obviously this stuff takes a lot longer, but in the last year it seems like all of these things have been sort of coming together. The connected apps linking to Embedding API v3, and now we're starting to see metrics being embedded. I always like to do a little bit of speculation as to, you know, where do you think Tableau is heading with all this? What do you think they're trying to enable? Obviously, Tableau economy is a pretty big deal, a pretty important part of that. They want to enable more people to build stuff for Tableau. But if I just go back to sort of the core of the APIs, what's sort of your outlook on what comes next? What do Tableau now need to improve to sort of make it a better place to be part of?
Yeah, it's like that question really depends on which day of the week you ask me.
Right.
Sometimes I think like we're heading towards a way where Tableau is going to like solidly for like real developers. Like if you think about the connector SDK, like C#, Java. Then if you think about other APIs like this embedding API, actually getting up and running with that one is now a lot easier. So for me, it's very much like Tableau originally has lowered the bar to visualization and to getting insights with this like drag and drop functionality for a lot of people. Like data analysts stuck in Excel moved to Tableau, and loads of people got like so much more fun in their job, right? And that's also where I hope the APIs and the integrations go to, that it's a lot easier for people to learn and how to put a Tableau chart, for example, somewhere. And for me, it's very important that the integration with other tools becomes kind of almost like a first-class citizen. So if a new tool comes out and we can put Tableau in there, it's great, right? It's the majority of tools now run on the web, in the web browser anyway. So that's that. Specifically, what we see a lot is that, for example, what we see with metrics is that more and more people are interested in it. And then another thing that I think they're going to include in the product very soon is like apply like row level security on metrics, because that's a big ask for a lot of people that are using metrics, because
they're quite generic at the
moment. They're very
generic.
They're not using the actual user context who is actually logging into the metric. But they are going to fix that, I think.
That's going to be an interesting cat and mouse game, because as soon as you have row level security, the immediate next thing you'll have is, why can't I do this as an author inside of desktop? Why just give this to me as a viz type, right? So that I can drag and drop it into my dashboard, so that it's not sort of this thing that's separate. But as you said earlier, it's built on a different technology, which is why it sort of sits outside of the dashboard.
Yeah, and the other thing that you're talking about, the Tableau economy, right? So we've seen that with Tableau Public, where there's a hire me button now, where you can actually go and talk to people, hey, like hire me to do this particular piece of work, especially really good for freelancers and people that typically use platforms like Fiverr or Upwork or something. But we see what a lot of Tableau partners, including the partner that we work for, is they can put that content on Tableau's Exchange, and those can be accelerators, so dashboard, they can be extensions, dashboard extensions, and also connectors. And in the future, we'll see some other content on that probably as well. So that means that the community can also help move the product roadmap forward, because we always hope that, hey, we build some kind of integration as an extension. Hopefully the Tableau developers pick up on that and then integrate it into like the native product, right? That's kind of the main goal.
And I'm also keen to see what use cases bubble up to the top when they open these doors, right? There's lots of opportunity for people who've been trying or needing certain things to work in Tableau, suddenly to go in and build those things. And there'll be a bit of a wild, wild west initially. It's a bit like the first time the App Store came about. Those first few days, first few months were rough, because people were just throwing everything to see what would stick. But after 2 to 3 years, it really started to become a refined place where there was an understanding of what was good and what was bad. And that will also start to get shared amongst partners and other people in the community, and hopefully people as well. I hope it's not just for partners. I hope people get to contribute to these independent developers, people like yourself, right? Like be able to submit stuff to the extension gallery and still also get some interesting.
Yeah, especially if they introduce things like, and I don't know if this is on the roadmap because I'm not chatting to that team, like think about reviews, or you're thinking about stars, so you can give like 1 star or 5 stars based like a rating system, or labels that like, hey, this has been built by Datadev, ambassador,
Yeah.
or this has been built by one of the visionaries or one of the other people in the community, and and find a way to reach out to them as well. So I think that's quite exciting.
And even if it's been deployed, not who it's been deployed to, because that's normally confidential information, but just being like, this is being used at 20 enterprise accounts, 20 medium to large businesses, and 10 small businesses. So something like that to say, oh, okay, this is a really trusted app. It's being used at lots of different scales. And sometimes that can come from Tableau, but it's not like the App Store where downloads is enough, right? You kind of need some different measure of trust, because one person can install it in the biggest deployment base of Tableau, and it can be an absolute dumpster fire. But, the smallest that might be great and not get noticed whatsoever. So this has been amazing. It's probably a good time to ask people, how can they find out more about what you do? What's your website? What's your channel? Share your screen. Tell us a bit more about where all these things are.
Yeah, of course. Let me share my screen.
I'm telling Andre to share a screen here because his website is actually beautiful. I'm always jealous. That A, he built his own website, and B, it's really good.
Again, just to go back to the beginning about how to learn, like real life projects are the best way to learn. So building this website as a project has given me so much to learn about. And I try to keep it as minimalistic and only use 2 or 3 colors here.
It's beautiful.
My original website had dark mode enabled, which if you're a developer, dark mode was fun, but it's not easy to implement.
It's not fun anymore.
Not fun anymore. So what I have is this kind of landing page where if you want to learn more about me, there's a learn more about me page actually. It's called the about page. So I think this is the kind of the information about me. But if you want to learn more about the different courses that I built, so I've built a few courses on YouTube as well, and these will link to my channel. For example,
these are free courses. I always highlight to people when at least when Andre and I are talking about courses, we're talking about just go to YouTube and start watching them. It's not a paid course. People have always asked, do you do paid courses? But this is the best knowledge we can share, and this is where we've put it.
Yeah, so this is the one that I should update, because we're now talking about version 3 and this is version 2. But to be honest, it will still teach you loads of elements of embedding Tableau, a 9 or 10 video course. You can watch it in about 2 hours, I think. But there's some hands-on sections as well. Definitely there's links to my YouTube page. You can find all of my details actually here on the front page. If you want to go to my YouTube here. And then I've created a whole bunch of projects. As I said, about 5 years ago, I started developing on top of Tableau. What I've done is I've created this is, 15 or 16 different projects that I've been working on.
Nice.
Including things like a Tableau public web data connector, which is a way to bring your Tableau public data into Tableau without having to write custom code. It's a web data connector. You plug it in, you put your username there, and you can get the information. So there's loads of stuff here. Again, as you said, this is all free, so you can get it whatever you want. Please reach out. If anyone has any questions about this, I'm happy to.
And it's on GitHub, so
yes.
I think majority of it's on GitHub, so people can open it up, reverse engineer it, and look at what you've done to kind of get these things
the majority of these things I've put loads of links to GitHub. So here we can see the Keep It Fresh extension that I built, which keeps your dashboard refreshed on a timer. You can grab the whole code for that, so you can even self-host it. I'm actually in the process of moving this to Docker containers, so you can even host a Docker container yourself. But all of this is free for you to grab and to learn from.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I've learned a ton of stuff. It's been absolutely incredible. I thought I knew generally the landscape of Tableau. I'd like to think of myself as someone who's in tune with what Tableau is doing, but actually I think the context you brought today has been super valuable. So to anyone watching, the people who always make it this far into video, these are the loyal people. These are the people that should absolutely, if you've made it this far, number one, go follow Andre on all the platforms, Twitter, YouTube, go to his website, watch his courses. And after you've done that, go to the Tableau website, sign up to the Datadev program, and check that out. Last but not least, you're doing a special event with Salesforce, right?
Yes. So on April 27 and 28, it is in San Francisco, but you can also attend this virtually. I am part of the Tableau keynote at Trailblazer DX, which is a Salesforce developer conference. Tableau, the Salesforce developer conference is not only Tableau, it's also MuleSoft and Slack and Salesforce. There's 5,000 people coming, so you can learn all about different APIs in the Salesforce ecosystem. And I'll be hosting the Tableau keynote together with Francois, who's the Tableau product officer at Tableau, and loads of Tableau product managers as well. And we'll show loads of cool stuff that you can do with the Tableau APIs.
It's fantastic. So basically, you're going to be, leading the charge on behalf of Tableau, essentially, at the Trailblazer DX.
I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Awesome. And it's in San Francisco. It's not a bad place to be at that time of year either. So pretty good. I'm looking forward to that session. I'll also put a link to the session itself, but also how to find out more about Trailblazer DX and watch it virtually or in person, whatever you want to do. I might, while you're doing it live, I might do a live reaction or something like that. I'll sort of enjoy the comforts of not being at the conference and being virtual and just do smack talk in the background. Like Andre never.
It's the good thing is that it's around 12:30 in San Francisco
UK
time, so it's in the evening. It's in the evening in the UK.
Oh, amazing. So it's easy to sort of just relax and hopefully you can Chromecast or something and put it on the TV. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, Andre, thank you so much. Thanks for coming onto the channel and doing this stuff. It's we've had nearly an hour now, so it's been absolutely fantastic. Go follow Andre. I won't ask you to subscribe to me. I think it's really important you go look at Andre's channel and find out more of the content that he's sort of putting out more consistently as well, and check out his blog as well. And stay tuned for more. I'm sure I'll probably have you back here in 6 months, going, explain all these extensions. How are they doing what they're doing?
Of course, yeah. Cool.
We should do some extension teardowns or something like that.
Let's celebrate all the APIs and all the integrations.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy.